Welcome back. It is 6:20 now, and as we enter a new phase in reopening California, a lot of people are going to be returning to work, but the workplace is going to look a little different. And Robin Paggi is joining us this morning. She's part of training and development specialist with WorkLogic HR, here to explain what you need to know about businesses reopening and what changes could be in store for the workplace. Good morning, Robin. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning.
So let's talk about some of these changes, because we keep hearing some of these, if you will, major changes that a lot of companies across the nation have floated out there and said that the workplace as we once knew it is not going to be the same. Things are going to really change when people return back to the office. So let me first ask, if people don't feel comfortable going back to the workplace, even though their company, even though the state or the government has said it is okay to return to the workplace, can they refuse to return?
Well, they can refuse to return, but if the employer has a ready position for them, if they have work for them, and the employer has followed all of the Centers for Disease Control guidelines and OSHA guidelines for preparing the workplace for it to be a safe place. If employees just refuse to go back to work, then they are going to lose their jobs. And the other thing is that if employees are on unemployment and they refuse to go back to work, they will also lose their unemployment.
What can they do if employees are still unsure about what the workplace is going to look like before returning, to make sure that it is safe to return? What are some steps that employees can do to reach out to their employer to make sure that it is in fact safe and they feel comfortable returning?
Employers need to follow the CDC and OSHA guidelines. So one of the things that employees can do is to get on the websites for both of those organizations to find out exactly what employers are supposed to be doing. And then they can check in with their employer to make sure that the employer is following those guidelines.
I think one thing that a lot of us have realized is that we can in fact work from home and continue to do our job normally, before all of this. Is it still possible for employees to reach out to their employer and say, I can still work from home? Is that possible for employees to do that?
Yes, especially during phase 2 of the reopening, as many employees that can stay at home and work should. Only people who need to come back into the workplace should be doing that. And so, yes, that's one of the things a lot of us found out, is that we don't necessarily need to go into the workplace to get our job done. And so that's one of the things that employers should do also. Only bring back the people that need to be there, especially during the reopening.
One thing that we hear from a lot of places is that they're going to start doing temperature checks before going into certain places. Can employees refuse to have their temperature checked?
They can, again, but if they refuse, then the employer can say that they don't have work for them.
Right.
And so they essentially resign from their jobs. During this time, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission said that employers can do health screenings. And so what was normally in the workplace, again, is different now. So while employees' health information still needs to be kept confidential by the employer when they're doing temperature checks, the employees who refuse to have any kind of screening are essentially resigning.
All right, Robin Paggi with WorkLogic HR. Thanks so much for joining us, giving us an update on what to do as we prepare to enter phase 2. A lot of people are going to be heading back to work fairly soon. Thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure.